Hi there, it's Larold, and today I'm going to be talking about a currency strategy I've really been enjoying recently in Path of Exile. You might know me from WoW, but I also play Path of Exile, and I have for many years. I love this game, and I've been thinking for several years now that I really should make some content for it, so what better time to start than now? One thing I don't love is Magic Find. I like balancing damage and defenses in my gear and in my builds, but I've just never really enjoyed the design of Magic Find, having to fit in that third thing of how much reward I get from doing everything as also part of the gearing process. No discredit to the people who love that, it's just never been for me. And that makes all my favorite farm strats like ambush div card farming, which is a gameplay loop I really enjoy, not very competitive with somebody who can get a bunch of Magic Find and make that work and give them like 10 times more stuff for the same cost that I'm paying to do it. So I felt that I needed to find something that doesn't need Magic Find to burn to turn a competitive profit doing in-game content. And that's what we have here. The basics of this strategy are that we're farming in-game Guardian bosses. We're doing quick maps, so no long 25-minute maps where you're stuck in there forever. And no Maven invitations. Also no dealing with Abyss, which is just sort of very nice in this particular moment to not have to do anything related to Abyss. So zero Magic Find and extremely consistent profits. You turn a profit basically every 6 to 8 minutes. You're not waiting on a 25 map delay on the payout like you would be if you were doing Eater of Worlds or Searing Exarch invitations. It's basically every 4 maps you're getting a nice big payout. Bulk selling all of the stuff that you farm from this is also pretty easy, and really what we're farming here is just in-game boss access, which is extremely valuable to the community at this point in the league. People want to go farm Watcher's Eyes, you're kind of generating the ability for people to do that. This also has tons of flexibility in the Atlas tree. You're not locked in. You can do Delirium, you can do Essence, you can do Heist, you can do one or any of those in addition to what you're doing with this strategy. I've been making about 50 divines an hour with a decent build. I think that's very easy to do. I've kind of been pretty chill doing that, in fact. I think 20 million DPS is sort of like an ideal minimum for this, and that's pretty easily attainable this league. There are tons of streamers that I've seen, people on YouTube talking about their budget 100 million plus builds this league. 100 million DPS for less than 100 divines, that kind of thing, which sounds awesome. So setting up something like that to do this should be a piece of cake. We're also ignoring the league mechanic. I love this league mechanic. I think Affliction is awesome. It's, I think, the highest retention rate of any league I can remember, and I think universally it's been loved. But this has been a fun change of pace, kind of taking a step back from the league mechanic with the insanely tanky wisp mobs and, you know, the inconsistent nature of the reward from them and just blasting through the base game. Speed is good here, but I'm kind of chilling. This is not like the Ancestor League Lightning Warp Tornado Shot Turbo Speed farming build where you'd basically have a sieger and you needed to be in and out of the maps in under 10 seconds or you were losing money, and half of the money that you were losing is from like load screens. We're spending about a minute or two each map. Totally fine. Fast and steady actually is better than slow and steady. Fast and steady wins the race. This is Alch and Go Viable as well. It's very easy to set this stuff up. I really don't roll the maps. I do 6 mod and then corrupt invitations hoping for an 8 mod, but that's basically it. I'm not looking for anything really all that special on maps, just trying to make sure I don't have any build disabling affixes. And then finally, it's a pretty cheap setup. The maps and the invitations are fairly expensive. The price range is anywhere from about 1.5 divines to 4 divines per set of 4 maps and invitation, depending on whether you're buying in bulk or buying them individually, piecemeal. Some of that runs into time as well, but that's basically it for the price. You also have decent self-sustain on the invitations, so about once every 6 maps or so, you're going to get another invitation. It's not enough to fully sustain on invitations, but it is an upfront cost that you pay, you know, picking up a bunch of maps and invitations, and then you're able to mitigate that over time. And that's the bulk of your expenses. You're only using one Sextant, the Harbinger Sextant, which at a very bad price in bulk is like 25 chaos. I think it's probably quite a bit less. Generally, when I've seen it's more like 15. We're not using Scarabs. You can use Cartographer's Scarabs, but you can also just spec into Stream of Consciousness, which really isn't all that valuable either. So very low effort to keep this setup sustained. Now let's take a look at the Atlas tree here. I'll swap over here. And this is what our Atlas tree looks like. As you can see, mainly what we're focusing on is duplicating maps, because a lot of the currency that we're getting out of this is coming from these talents up at the top, or these passives up at the top, like Remnants of the Past, where you get a higher value map drop as an extra drop off of each final map boss. Conquered Conquerors, same thing. You're getting the Elder Slayer maps. And then Vivid Memories, where you can get synth maps are not really worth that much. They're sort of an extra little bonus, but then Cortex is the one that is worth quite a bit, over 3.5 divines in bulk. Pretty good, and I've run into quite a bunch of those. I've set this this atlas up to farm Delirium as the league mechanic of choice. So we're just taking all of the things that make Delirium a little bit more rewarding. Mainly what we're going for here is Delirium Orbs. We're getting all these Delirium Orb chances. Now, because we're doing Maven, we're taking Destructive Play, so this adds 1 to 3 extra bosses into each map. It can be a little dangerous, depends. You know, I really haven't found it to be all that sketchy most of the time. Maybe a couple of times here and there where she'll summon multiple bosses that all channel some unavoidable damage over time onto you, and I'll die. I usually like to set a portal in the map boss room as soon as I enter. Obviously, cast on Death Portal would be a good idea, but I couldn't really fit that into my build at present. And so what we're getting here is we're getting anywhere from 2 to 4 map bosses in each map. We're combining that with the Harbinger Sextant that makes it so that map bosses drop stacks of Harbinger currency. And then we are using Unspeakable Offensive to make it so that currency shards can drop as whole currency items. We're getting all of the passives that make Harbingers drop additional currency shards as well. So what we're trying to do here is fish for, among other things, fracturing shards and fracturing orbs. I have gotten a full fracturing orb from this strategy, I think within the first 2 hours of doing it. I do like to pick up first wave just because you are going to fight one Harbinger on the boss. So it's nice if that one is a Harbinger boss. It gives a little bit more reward. But generally speaking, we're not looking to juice a number of Harbingers in here. I'm not taking Ominous Arrival. I'm not stopping and killing Harbingers along the way. I'm just running the map boss, killing it, looting everything, and leaving. And that's why we don't really care that much about the quantity and the map modifier effect. They're good to have, but there's a lot of flexibility in this tree. Ultimately, what we're locking in on is we're getting these Maven nodes, and we are definitely getting the Maven invitation drop chance. We're getting all of the things that add map boss rewards, so Conquered Conquerors, Remnants of the Past, and so on. We are taking the 7th gate so that we can add Delirium Mirrors guaranteed into our maps, but you can drop all of this and just take that which you seek here, and these 3 nodes here to give yourself, I think it's about, if you're running Stream of Consciousness, I think it's about a 46 or 48% chance of having a Deli Mirror on each map. Basically a 50% chance of having a Deli Mirror on each map. And that'll save you, I think, 10 chaos per map. You won't have a Deli Mirror every time, but, it'll save you a little bit of currency and a little bit of points around the tree that you can then just kind of invest wherever you like. A little bit more quant, a little bit more map modifier effect, so you have more quant in the map. Now, getting quant and all of that isn't really that important because we're not trying to do big conversion mob explosions. We're really just trying to rush the bosses, but it's kind of the best thing available. The same thing goes here with these map drops have a chance to be duplicated. They're really just the best thing available. They can duplicate some of these maps that you get from bosses. And if they do, that's free money. Now, alternately, you can drop all of these Delirium nodes. And instead of speccing out a 7th gate, I would probably keep 7th gate, but drop all of the Delirium nodes and spec into Essence or Heist. I haven't played with Heist. I have played with Essence. It's definitely easier. It's a lot easier, actually, than Delirium. Not really surprising. But it isn't as rewarding. So I think it's probably a better strategy if you're maybe a little bit on the lower end of damage. You can spec into these Essence nodes, and then that actually does free you up a little bit to put some points into, let's say, quant and map mod effect, something like that. And then also you get a little bit more value out of Stream of Consciousness, where now those extra essences that are being added by Stream of Consciousness are actually worth a little bit more. You can definitely get some currency out of essences as well. Like I said, I haven't really played with Heist at all. I don't really like selling Heist contracts or blueprints. If you don't mind doing that, selling them in bulk is a really great way to make some currency, and it's very easy. You just click the box and then you're good to go, and you can have an extra 2, what are they called? Smuggler's caches in each map from the map device by running heist there. Definitely a good strategy if you're willing to go through that inconvenience. For me, I'm just not. So now let's talk about like the positives and negatives of the build. The positives, really, number one for me is just that it's fast. It's fast. I'm not locked into a 20+ minute map at any point, and that feels great. You know, sometimes I want to get up and have a soda or something, and I don't want to have to like wait 15 minutes until I hit the end of the map before I do that. Additionally, it's cheap. Like, despite the pretty high cost of maps themselves, you know, the whole map and invitation setup being a couple of divines, when you compare that to the price of Scarabs and the price of Sextants for Abyss, that sort of thing, it's really not that expensive for an in-game strategy that is generating this level of currency. I mean, again, we are talking about 50 divines per hour as a pretty attainable like amount of currency that we're making. It's pretty good. Like, I've kind of tried to stop doing this strategy and then decided like, well, I want to make this video, but also I kind of got addicted to it because of just how much currency I am making doing this. It's also semi-self-sustaining by doing, if I pull up the map tree here again, by doing like, let's say we start doing some Shaper sets. We're also going to be getting Elder, Shaper, and Sirus Guardian maps. So by doing one, you're generating currency, you know, maps and so on to do the other two. Then you do one of the other two, now you're rotating back through. So it kind of creates this ecosystem where by doing one, you're farming up for the other and then just rotating through. It's really quite satisfying, a really good gameplay loop that kind of rewards you for doing all of this stuff. I have to say, for a long time, I had really thought that the Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds had really come in and kind of pushed Maven out and made her irrelevant. I was wrong. She's irrelevant for like Atlas farming. Like, I wouldn't want to do Maven Atlas invitations as a main strategy. But for doing in-game bosses, this is a fantastic gameplay loop that I think is a lot more consistent and just right on par with all of the Exarch and Eater setups that I have done in the past with League mechanics that, you know, don't require Magic Find as much, like Harvest or Blight. So the negative here is that this is a speed-focused setup, so obviously for people who really just don't want to feel rushed while doing their maps, that's kind of a downside. Ultimately, you know, this is Path of Exile, right? It's an ARPG. Speed is kind of the name of the game, so I think just by playing the game, you've kind of signed up for that, so I don't think that's too big of a downside. The other one would just be build requirements and kind of ignoring the League mechanic. The League mechanic is awesome, so I understand why people would not want to ignore the League mechanic, but for me, having done it for a while, it was nice to get a bit of a change of pace. All right, some more thoughts on this. Speed is good. I don't really think there's all that much more to say about it. I'm not stressing about it, unlike the speed farming builds or speed farming setup of Ancestor. I'm definitely relaxed and still making a ton of currency, but if I were stressing about it, I would probably be making a good bit more. So there is that to it. In terms of build requirements, single target damage, I have about 35 million DPS. If I pull up my PoB here we go, 35 million DPS. This is assuming all full buffs, but I'm playing Toxic Rain Pathfinder, so all full buffs are pretty much guaranteed. I have super speed, 310% move speed modifier, very, very fast, just left click, zoom in. Culling Strike is really nice to have for this since it is a bossing setup. I have done this on a 5-link and even a 4-link. The 5-link is probably around 20 million DPS, and the 4-link is probably more like 10 because I also wasn't running Blood Rage, but I'm not getting my Mana Forged Arrow support on either the 4 or the 5-link, so not getting as many Wither stacks, not getting Frenzy, not getting Ensnaring Arrow effect, like not getting any of that. I still felt like I was moving at a pretty decent pace at 20 million DPS. I thought that was totally sufficient. 10 million, little slower. It felt okay. I wouldn't do Delirium on 10 million DPS. In terms of other requirements of the build, obviously speed, more is good, and phasing is really nice to have as well. As for tankiness, I just literally wrote yes in my outline. Yes, you want tankiness, obviously. You want to be able to do bad map mods like Reflect as well. I reroll no regen and reduce life regen because my main source of defense is kind of a Divine Life Flask, so reduce regen is pretty brutal for that. And then no regen just disables my Toxic Rain, so I have to take Empower out. Then that shuts off my Mana Forged Arrows. Very annoying to deal with. So those are the only two that I reroll over. And that's kind of it. I've already talked about my build here. It's definitely kind of my own version of Toxic Rain. I'm not using a Defiance of Destiny. I'm not using all Ellie Res flasks. I'm using a Mage Blood and then only using 3 flasks on it. Definitely some optimization that could be made there, but I've killed all the Ubers on this build. I pretty comfortably for the most part. Uber Sirus is very annoying, but pretty comfortably killed all the Ubers. Definitely having no problems with this farm strategy at all. Like I said, I did test on a 4-link. It still worked. I thought it felt good in general. If I didn't have the immediate comparison of doing this with 35 million DPS, it would have felt probably fine. But obviously, by comparison, it's kind of a bummer. So now let's talk about how this makes currency. I have a little spreadsheet here that's just covering the guaranteed currency of the 3 boss sets. So Elder's cost per set is quite a bit lower than the other 2, and the average revenue that you get out of it is quite a bit higher because the fragments for Elder, people want to run Elder. They want to get high value Watcher's Eyes. There's also a pretty nice div card that you get out of Elder, the Eldritch Decay. I would say you probably get one of these cards maybe every set or so, and this just gives you an Uber Elder fragment. This is also to blow up another money-making opportunity. If you were to just buy Eldritch Decays, like bespoke, just go around and buy them from everybody who's listing one for like 20 or 30 chaos, a full set of these is worth about 1.5 divine, depending on which Uber Elder fragment you get. Selling Uber Elder fragment sets in bulk is like 7 divine or so that's actually a pretty good moneymaker to just go around and buy Eldritch Decay cards one at a time and compile those and then sell off the sets in bulk. Shaper is a good bit more expensive, mainly because the invitation is more expensive, and I mean really the reason that Elder is so cheap is because the bosses are very annoying to run. In terms of the profit per hour, I think like I said, just the guaranteed profit I was pulling, probably 25 divines of profit per hour, just on guaranteed rewards from Elder. On Shaper, it's probably more like 15 because the bosses are less annoying, but the maps are a lot longer. They are quite a bit annoying. I would say that in general, the Shaper is pretty good. It's Shaper Guardians. What more can you say? There isn't any sort of fancy, valuable div card from them either, so that's sort of a downside. And then finally, Sirus Guardians are by far the most fun to me. Like Elder, they can be in any map, so you could get them in Mesa, very quick map, you rush straight to the boss, so you're in and out of there in under a minute, or it can be in a map like Maze, where you might be in there for a couple of minutes. Sirus's Guardians are just generally a lot less annoying than Elder or than like Guardian of the Chimera in the Shaper setup, but that's kind of offset by the fact that they're a lot more expensive. The map sets and the invitations are a lot more expensive, and so your profit per hour from doing Sirus is a good bit lower, but that's a little deceptive. In essence, what we're doing here is we are farming 6 in-game content keys, fragments, maps, whatever you want to say. It's these 3 guys, Elder, Shaper, and Sirus. We're also farming Maven's Writs, and then we're farming Simulacrums and Cortexes. Now, obviously, if you're not doing Delirium Mirror, you're not going to be farming Simulacrums, but otherwise, farming Simulacrums and then Cortexes are also kind of a part of this. The fragments are very consistent. You're getting 1 fragment from each map. You're generally getting 1 to 2 fragments from each invitation as well. And you're getting 5 to 6 Maven Writ Splinters per invitation, sometimes 7 from the Corrupted 8 mod invitations. You're also getting valuable currency. You're getting Fracturing Orbs from Harbingers and from all of the map bosses. You're getting Delirium Orbs from doing Delirium Mirrors. You can reroll Deli Orbs at the Harvest Bench. Skittering Diviners of Fine Deli Orbs are all worth a lot more than generic orbs, and they will sell faster in bulk. Like if I just look at my Deli Orb tab here, this is the returns of 4 sets of Guardians I did. I think it looks like I did 2 Shaper Guardian sets, 1 Sirus Guardian set, and 1 Elder Guardian set. And you can see quite a bit of currency in here. If I were to pull up the PoE stack for it, it looks like this, 37 divines. Now, these numbers aren't all necessarily accurate. I know that some of these might be a little inflated to account for like bulk pricing, but still 30 something divines in the span of maybe 35 minutes is not bad. All right, where was I? I was looking at Delirium Orbs. So if we look at my Delirium Orb tab here, which obviously I haven't put this dump into it, there might not be any Delirium Orbs in there. I think I've been doing Essence lately. We can see a lot of like low value delirium orbs here, jeweler's orbs. I could take those over to the harvest bench and craft them for, I think it's 30 blue life force per orb. Craft them 10 at a time and try and turn them all into fine, skittering, or diviner's orbs. And that would really, really increase the value of that tab. If you're doing essences, then obviously, you can get essences as well, and those can be worth quite a bit. Like, again, this is just from 16 maps here, and if I just type essence in, like five or six divines worth of essences in the span of 16 maps. Not too bad. I haven't done heist contracts and blueprints. I'm confident that those would be a good moneymaker if you're willing to go through the inconvenience of selling them or running them or whatever. The main value of it, I think, is just that it's really low effort. You click the box and you pick up the items. That's pretty much it. And that's nice. But for me, the inconvenience is not really worth it. There are some other things that make you some money as well, though, here. There are awakened gems, which have a decent drop chance from invitations. I have found and sold many awakened elemental damage with attack support gems. I've gotten some like awakened swift affliction. I've gotten awakened brutality that I leveled up in my offhand because it really wasn't worth much. Corrupted and actually got a level 6 out of it, and I think I got like a dozen divines out of that, so that was pretty nice. You also get orbs of conflict, and you get Elder Slayer's exalted orbs. So if we look at this tab here, you can see I have 24 orbs of conflict, which are worth about a divine, I think a little bit more than a divine in bulk, which is pretty good. And then the Elder Slayer exalted orbs are from Sirus Guardians only, but they do have a decent drop chance. You also get valuable maps. You get Elder Shaper and Sirus maps, all which kind of help you sustain. You get synthesized maps, which are kind of like a fun little bonus. Sometimes I will do a hidden set if I have all of the synth maps required. I think I have burned through all of them, but you do have a handful of forgotten invitations, and so I will do some of those forgotten invitations from time to time and just see if I can get anything cool and synthesized out of it. You also get a lot of Cortex maps here, which I have sold off some of my Cortexes already, and I've farmed back up another 10 Cortexes. You also get Maven invitations, and that really is what helps you with all of the self-sustaining. I think I generally, as we can see here, I did 16 maps and I got 12 maps out of it. So I would say you get around one map per Maven invitation, and then maybe like one map every other map. Remnants of the Past and Conquered Conquerors. Ugh. That's not fun to say. They really synergize with each other very nicely. It's not a perpetual motion machine, but it is kind of close. This is self-farmable, the maps, instead of buying them all in bulk from somebody. It is self-farmable through the Sextant that gives Shaper, Elder, or Elder Slayer maps on completion, but you don't want to do that strategy with this one. It's not per map boss, it's just on map completion. So that Sextant also comes with the downside, regardless of which reward it is. It comes with the downside of doubling the map boss's damage and tripling their health, so you really don't want to juice these in-game bosses with that for no reason. It is pretty decent though if you just throw it onto a map boss, like, you want to spam run a bunch of maces with Conqueror map at the end of it, do like 16 or 20 of those in a row. That's actually a pretty good money making strategy as well. Sell to somebody who's doing this. It is a little dangerous though. So why do all three of these guys? That's probably the biggest thing, with Elder being so much more profitable than Sirus, and potentially faster depending on what maps it is than Shaper, but certainly like more profitable than Shaper as well. Why bother with the other two? I think the issue here is the Elder's the most profitable, but the bosses for it are very annoying. Waiting on the Elder to kill the map boss and phase the Guardian boss sucks. The bosses are easy, but they're slow, annoying. So I needed a little bit of a change of pace, and doing them, about a third of the time is not a problem. I don't get irritated, but I think if I were just sitting here and perpetually doing the Elder bosses, I think I would be done with this strategy and not talking about it. There is also a good div card that comes from it. Eldritch Decay, I mentioned, it grants an Uber Elder Fragment every few sets, so that's pretty good. Sirus has the highest base costs, and that really is what makes him kind of the worst one in terms of profit. So the guaranteed profits are the lowest, but there's the potential for really good RNG on bases and Elder Slayer orbs. I've gotten some bases from Sirus that I've sold for multiple divines, And you also get a map boss in each map. So there is an extra Harbinger slot for one thing. You know, you're getting, instead of 2 to 4 bosses per map, you're getting, I guess, 3 to 5 bosses per map, which is pretty good for just juicing that Harbinger Sextant even further. And it also grants base Atlas Invitation progression. So occasionally you will actually run one of these Maven's Invitation Atlas. And if you do these while it's corrupted 8 mod, you can get like 2 Maven's Writs out of it for very quick, like in and out in 40 seconds, 30 seconds. 2 Maven's Writs is, not Maven's Writ splinters, but still that's pretty good. And I would say I get about 1 or 2 of these Atlas invitations every hour or so of running the Elder Slayer sets. Shaper's kind of the most middle of the road. The maps are long and linear, so it's really good for Delirium. It is also harder on Delirium. The maps are more consistent than the other 2. You'll never get a super speedy map like Mesa or City Square, but you're never going to get a slow, winding, annoying map like Maze, or a really frustrating map boss like Reef or Core. It also comes with a good div card, Fate Worse Than Death, which grants a Cortex for 4 cards. So you get basically a free Cortex every few sets of Elder Slayer maps. Not bad. So what do we do? This is really the best part of the strategy. What we do is we buy the Harbinger Sextants in bulk, which I have already done that. I've already burned through about half of them now. And then you just apply 4 of them at a time. You can see all of my Void Stones just have the same Sextant on them. I don't need another. I've looked at options for another good Sextant. The only one I ever came up with that I thought was close was this one right here. Delirium Reward Bars fill 100% faster in your maps. I do think this is okay if you're doing Shaper Guardian and you're definitely going to hit like 7 rewards. But for Elder Guardian and for Elder Slayers, I didn't really find it to be any better than just conveniently slapping Harbinger on every time. I like to stack up 3 or 4 sets at once, so normally I would have like 3 sets in here, and maybe if I'm low on my Sextants, I would have just a rack of Sextants here, just kind of to speed things up, ease of use, and making sure I don't forget to put Sextants on, because that's happened a couple of times. I check the maps for build disabling modifiers, so just go through here, make sure that none of these have no regen or anything. They all don't, they're good. And then I will roll and corrupt the Elder Slayer invitation or whatever invitation. I've already done that, so I'm going to swap that out with this one here just to kind of demonstrate. All right, ID. And look, I'm just looking to either get some decent mods here, like either 5 or 6 mods, if I can scour and alch my way to that. All right, I got 5, that works. I will tap it with a Exalted Orb to get it up to 6, and then hit a Corrupt. Hoping for the 8 mod, but 6 will still work just fine. That's really the only thing that I do any sort of rolling on, is I just make sure that the invitations are rolled up to 6 mods. That's it. Now I just set my map device to whatever I'm doing. If I was doing like that which you seek deli setup, where I'm just getting deli chance and I'm trying to really keep costs low, then I would just leave it on quant. But otherwise, I'll just do essence or heist, or in this case, delirium. Make sure that Maven is witnessing, and then there we go. That's it. We just go and do the map, zoom through, clear your bag after every invitation. So after every 4 maps and an invitation. And the one downside, the one small annoyance in all of this is that after each invitation, you will need to reset your map device. Like after you put the invitation in and run it, you'll come back and it will be set back to quantity. So you'll need to remember to scroll down and hit delirium. That is super important. Another thing that I didn't write in my notes here is before you leave the map, you're doing delirium, be sure that you press whatever your keybind is to end the delirium fog so that you actually get the reward out of that. I have missed out on several of those, and that's money wasted. That's money down the drain. So obviously you want to make sure that you're getting your delirium rewards before you leave the map. So let me talk about doing invitations before I do my little demonstration here. Doing invitations are probably the fastest part of all of this if your damage is high, and the easiest as well. They're probably the most dangerous if your damage is a bit lacking. The bosses that I like to focus first are, for the Elder, I like to focus the Eradicator. That's the lightning guy. He's just very annoying. The other 3 bosses don't really matter so much. I've never really felt like the Elder bosses felt like real fights to me, compared to the other two sets. For Shaper, I really like to get the Hydra. She is just an off-screen sniper. She's killed me more than any of the other Shaper, or more than all of the other Shaper bosses combined. The Phoenix is good to take down next. The Ramping Fire res debuff is pretty nasty. For Sirus, Baran, whatever his name is, Lightning Guy, he is just an off-screen sniper. He's also an on-screen sniper. He's just a killing machine, so you really want to focus him down as quickly as you can. And he doesn't have a lot of health either, so he's pretty quick to focus down. Then Feritania, the Frost Lady, Cold Lady, definitely want to take her down too. Her Explosion of Tornadoes is super dangerous. I've tried to get into melee range with her and burn her down and hope that I can beat it going off and have that not be the case and eat 15 tornadoes to the face and died more times than I care to admit. So don't face tank her. Don't let her kill you. Just kill her before she can do you in. And I think that's it for explanation. Now I'm going to do a little demonstration and just do a full set and then we'll be done. Delirium set, we got Maven watching, we're ready to go. I don't even know what this is, city square map, oh that's great. Okay, normally I never look at my maps and what they are, but I see that this is a reef map and a maze map, so I actually am, for the sake of this video, I am going to reroll them to anything else using a Orb of Horizons. And that's a no regen. Okay, we got a couple of jungle valleys. That sounds great. And now, first things first in the map, we're going to look for the Delirium Mirror. We're going to tap that, and then I'm just going to kind of kill a few things on the way to the map boss, because ultimately killing that map boss +1's your Delirium reward. So I want to hit at least 5 on every map when I'm doing Delirium. It's not a ton of stuff. There we go. We hit 4. That's plenty of zooming around now to kill the map bosses. And then we'll go in and kill... Which Guardian is this? Baran, maybe? I wasn't paying attention. I should have been doing that. Yeah, it's Baran. All right. Let's go give him the 1-2. I would say one of the mistakes that I've made, probably one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in doing this, is kind of seeing that I'm close to 6 or close to 7 and spending a bunch of time running around trying to get to that next iteration on the Delirium mirror counter. Really not worth it to do that. Better to just hit the button and get in and out of there. And that's not a town portal. Okay. And that's one map. Now we're on to the next. Veritania, Jungle Valley. This is a nice map for filling up the mirror. And yeah, pretty decent. The map boss is a little slow, so that's maybe the one downside of this particular map, but that's okay. Kind of a realistic portrayal of what's going to be happening in here. All right, now we're just zooming our way straight to the map boss. If we can run over some big packs of guys to kill along the way and fill up that Delirium mirror counter, that's nice. I see I'm running faster than the Delirium fog is moving, so that's kind of the one downside of doing Deli as opposed to Essence or whatever. It does slow you down a bit, but the orbs really make up for it. Deli orbs are 3 to a divine or so. Even for bad ones, maybe 2 to a divine for the really nice ones. So I've had some maps where I've gotten 6 deli orbs in a map that took 90 seconds. That feels pretty good to get over 2 divines in less than 2 minutes. Can't really complain about that, while also pulling in 10, 15, 20 divines an hour just with the other half of the farm strategy. Not too bad. All right, always important to set a portal before you go in, just in case anything goes bad inside the boss's room. Another nice thing about Delirium, even though it does add a bunch of damage reduction and increased damage to bosses, it does make bosses tend to... I almost went through my portal there without ending the fog. Yeah. It does tend to make the bosses kind of stand still and do a delirious attack, and that basically just sets them up to let you tunnel on them for the first 5 seconds or so of the fight, which often can be the entirety of the fight. So kind of hit and miss. If you're really, really smashing on damage, Delirium can actually make things a bit easier while also being more rewarding. If your damage is a little lower, again, reason not to do it and to just do Essences or Heist instead. It would be nice to hit 7 rewards in this map, like to hit 6 before I make it to the boss, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm moving too fast for the mirror again. That's okay. Now, as you can see, we're not really worried about how many mobs we kill on the way. Like, the fact that we're doing the Deli Mirror makes me want to kill some of the mobs, but I'm not stopping and smelling the roses. I'm not stopping and killing the Harbingers or anything like that. Just not worried about it, because the main source of income here is really just killing these map bosses and getting like both the combination of the Harbinger compass. Hey, see, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. I love when a point gets made like right at the proven correct right at the right time. That's what we like to see. Yeah, the Harbingers, I mean, they're just worth a ton of currency right now, and I think the biggest irritation with doing Harbinger is the fact that you actually have to do Harbinger. I spent a lot of time doing Harbinger farm, and I found that just doing bosses and getting the Harbinger reward from bosses is quite a lot more efficient. Hey, and there we go. Some nice deli orbs as well, and some terrible cluster jewels. One thing I didn't talk about when I was looking at the Atlas here is Paranoid Fixation. Normally this is a passive that people skip over because it's a 1% chance per unique monster to drop a deli orb. But because we're getting so many extra unique bosses, we're getting 1 to 3 more bosses, right? So we're getting 2 to 5 bosses per map, or I guess 3 to 6 per map in Sirus Guardian maps. That's like 2 to 5, 2 to 6 percent chance to get a deli orb every map, and with them being 3 to a divine, that's pretty rewarding, all things considered. For a single point compared to like 1% more quant in the map, it's quite a good reward. Again, I just kind of want to get to a sort of a minimum of 4 before I tag the boss. All right. Tainted Jeweler's Orb. Not really worth going back out there, but I have a compulsive need to pick up everything that drops, which is why I tend to set my filter to be usually kind of tight, turbo strict, so that I'm not... All right, I'm counting on the fact that I'm not going to die to this guy, but we'll just go ahead and set a portal outside just in case, good practices and all that. And I would say realistically, this is about the speed that I'm moving through these maps, so you can see plenty of time being wasted here, definitely stopping and getting a soda in between. Not hyper efficient by any stretch. Having fun though. Gotta say, I'm having a lot more fun than somebody who's trying to do 5 maps a minute. And lovely, another Delirium Orb, that's great. So just in those 3 deli orbs that we got between the last couple of maps, that's a divine. Easy. All right, now let's do this invitation. Don't even know what mods are on it, doesn't matter. Like I said, we're going to be looking for Baran. Here he is in the bottom right corner, and then we're hoping... Oh, that's Drox. All right, well... I mistook him. Okay, Veritania it is. We got her. Now we're looking for Barana. It's this guy right here. Nope, he's not releasing yet, so we'll just take down whichever of them, and we'll get Baran when he comes out. All right, and there it is. We got a crest. We got 6 Maven's splinters, crescent splinters. Kind of a medium reward in terms of invitation, and then just in terms of bases that I look for, I really didn't mention that or put it in any of my notes. I like to look at Shaper and what's this guy? Crusader boots, just to see if there's a T1 cooldown reduction roll. Crafters will like those. Tailwind boots from Hunter can be something you might be able to sell that base off as well. For the most part, most of the rest of the bases aren't worth all that much. I would say Crusader rings, specifically the Moonstone rings, whatever the energy shield rings. If you get one of those that also has an energy shield roll on it, that could be pretty decent in terms of profit. All right, so this div value, for what it's worth, was 37 divs in my PoE stack. If we look back at my browser here, 37 divs before I put any of this in. So let's just dump all this junk in and just see, what does it say it's worth? If we want to believe it, which, yeah, sure, why not? And then you have to zone in and out of the zone to like reset your inventory. And then we'll just hit load and wait and just see what it says it's worth. All right. So, yeah, you know, about 13 divs allegedly for that set. Not too bad, even if that's a decent overestimate, which I think the Maven's Writs are definitely an overestimate on what they're actually selling for in bulk. Some of these other things, the fragments are kind of underestimating what they're selling for in bulk. So I think to some extent that evens out. Ultimately, I gotta say, not bad. I've been really impressed with how effective this has been as a farm strategy, both in terms of like being fun. I'm having fun doing this, but also making a lot of currency. Like I said at the top of the video, I think 50 divines an hour is a very attainable, reasonable, consistent amount. You know, you're not relying on like jackpot drops for this to be valuable. But there are plenty of jackpot drops along the way, and that's pretty nice. All right, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.